Hi again, everybody, and welcome to the Inglels Furman Football Radio Network preview. It is the regular season finale on Saturday for the Paladins at Wofford, looking to finish off a perfect run through the Southern Conference and, for the first time in school history, win 8 Southern Conference games, go 8-0 in the league. I'm Dan Scott, and look what I found.
Look what walks off the street,
That's
Dan.
right.
I mean, you knock on a door, and what happens? You're on the air, and we'll find out if that's any good or not.
Well, the circumstances are very similar to a year ago. If you remember, we were playing football, I believe, in Charleston, or no, we were playing basketball in Charleston.
Right, yeah, the tournament.
And had to get ready for a football game, and so you joined me for the last regular season Inglels Furman Radio Network preview. We did it from David Kopp's house,
I was
if you
sitting
remember.
there going, I think we did. We had all the Furman football helmets in the background.
Yes.
I'm going, man, this is pretty impressive. And in fact, that room was bigger than some of the apartments that I've lived in.
No kidding.
Before, so.
Anyway, thank you, David, again for that.
Yeah.
So Furman and Wofford in this regular season finale. Of course, the Paladins ranked second in the nation. They've already wrapped up everything in the SoCon. Tom, the skeptic would say that, boy, this is a trap game for Furman, and because you've got the playoffs that'll probably be starting in 2 weeks, you're most likely going to get the bye unless something just totally out of the ordinary happens this weekend. And the inclination for some would say this is a game that Furman may be looking past. I've talked to all the coaches this week. I do not get that sense at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, all you got to do, go back last year to the Sanford game, 34-27. Sanford scored those 3 touchdowns there in the first half and took control and won that game. Game on at that point last year to have an opportunity to get to the playoffs, and they were able to do that. I get the sense this year, too, and the way the schedule played out with the road games, it seemed like it was a big game for everybody, wasn't it? At Western Carolina, at Chattanooga, and go on down the line as well. And it's an experienced team. We've talked about all the starters coming back. We talked about 2 deep. But I just get the sense this is a Furman team that is going to go in and take it game by game. That's hard to do, to look past it because you want to get back to the playoffs. But, I mean, I anticipate them playing pretty well on Saturday.
What this Paladin team has already done has put it in some pretty fair company in Furman football history. When you start talking about 88, 89, that era, you're in some pretty heady company. For instance, a win against Wofford would set a new standard for consecutive Southern Conference victories at 14. They're tied with the 88 through 90 teams, a span of 3 different seasons, end of 88 through the beginning of 90. At 13 right now. The Paladins have won 8 consecutive games overall. The last time Furman posted 9 consecutive wins was 1989. And it would, as I mentioned, become the first Furman team in school history to go 8-0 in Southern Conference play, and, Tom, become just the 4th team in over 100 years of football to win 10 games in the regular season. So we're talking about some pretty heady stuff on the line here.
Yeah, I tell you what, you're making headway, you're making records, and you're making Hunter Reed work hard there to come up with all that information.
Yeah, but by the way, I didn't do all that off the top of my head. This is Hunter Reed's work.
I said on the pregame, I go, man, I'll tell you what, you're earning your money. But, yeah, I mean, when you're doing that, you know that you've had a successful season, you've had a successful run of 4 or 5 years, and we go back to Austin Peay and what happened there in the third quarter, the lightning delay and everything like that, and Incarnate Word and the press conference that you host as well on Monday. The players, they've bought in. A lot of these guys came back because they wanted to have an opportunity to make a deeper run into the playoffs. Be able to do that, it's important that you have some games at home. And that's where the Paladins are. I mean, Wofford has had a tough season. They got the 11-3 win of the rain at Citadel last time out. They played some teams pretty tough this year, including Chattanooga, 23-13 at home, and Western Carolina was a tough game as well. So they've been competitive. But I think this is a Furman team that they have a lot of things on the line. This is a big game for them. And we may get into it here in just a minute as far as top seeds and what that means and so forth, because Montana State plays at Montana this weekend, and you never know what the committee's going to do. Furman's number 2 right now. Could they bump them? Well, you need to go out and win your ball game first.
Yeah, I have been watching some of the media from out west this week and some of the projections and everything, and they are really laying it on thick about the winner of Montana State, which is 3 and 4 in the poll, will likely be the number 2 seed, and then I saw one of the reasons that they're so out of whack about the possibility of not being a number 2 seed, Tom, is that Montana has exactly 1 road win in the playoffs in school history. Montana State has exactly 1 road win in the playoffs in school history. So they've done the majority of their damage by getting to play at home. Not that they haven't earned that opportunity.
Yeah, that's how it works.
But you're seeing a lot of consternation coming from out west right now about and starting to even talk about good losses, which I find kind of hilarious, actually, if you want to go down that road.
Well, go down to North Dakota State. Before the game last week, it's Southern Illinois, and they were in a 3-way tie for 6th, right?
Yes.
In the Mo Valley. Now, again, they're solid, but they've lost a bunch of games on the road, and they did get some good wins. And again, they've been a tremendous FCS. They were a great program at the Division II level as well. But most of those games have been played up in Fargo and places like that. You just love to have the opportunity. You got to earn that to get it, but you also, and with my background at the Division II level, I can just tell you never know what's happening with the committee. The only thing Furman can do is go in, play well, and get the win. And you know what? If they get passed over, that's just how it goes. But the key is to get into the playoffs, and Furman knows they're already in as the automatic bid out of the Southern Conference.
Well, unlike some of those teams we've been talking about, who have not played an FBS team, who have played non-scholarship teams, who have played Division II opponents, Furman has not done any of that. They have played South Carolina. They have no D2 teams on the schedule, no non-scholarship teams on the schedule. So for every point, there's a counterpoint, and that's for media and all those other people to argue about. The bottom line is all Furman can do is what is in front of it, and that is beat Wofford, put that resume out there, and then put your fate in the hands of a group of people who go behind closed doors and call themselves a committee.
I mean, yeah, I read the same stuff you do, and it seems that if it comes down to something, it's going to come down to strength of schedule, and that's kind of where Furman is down a little bit compared to some of those teams in the Big Sky, some of those teams in the Mo Valley that have all been highly ranked this year, and it may come down to that. That's just one of the factors that's involved. But it's always interesting when you sit there and it's going to be, you're going to be nervous to obviously depending on what happens on Saturday. But the fact that you're in, you have a chance, you've got an experienced team, and what you were able to do at Chattanooga with your starting quarterback going out. I mean, you got to take a lot of that into consideration as well. You got a young guy that came in here and performed very well at Chattanooga, and Carson Jones last week throws the 4 touchdown passes to 4 different receivers, and all of a sudden you lead 34-0 on a VMI team that took Chattanooga to the wire 24-23 and missed a point after and lost by just 1 point. It was an impressive performance.
Well, none of what we're talking about here matters a flip if Furman goes up to Wofford and lays the colossal egg on Saturday. So let's start breaking down a little bit, looking at these two teams. Terriers have had, obviously, a struggle of it this year, although they have played their best against the better teams in the league, and the games that they've been the most successful had chances to win, or the games they've been able to run the football. You look at what they were able to do against Western, for example. They ran the ball very well, 190-plus yards in that game. And so there have been a couple of those games on their schedule. But as you look at the number breakdown, the rushing offense, Furman rushes for 40 more yards per game. Passing offense, Furman has a big advantage there, big advantage in total offense, in scoring offense. And then, defensively, the only area where Wofford has the advantage is in passing yardage allowed, but in total defense, Furman has the advantage, scoring defense, obviously, right on down the line. And then you get to what I think is the core of this game, Tom, from a Furman standpoint. Can the Paladins make Wofford one-dimensional and then get after what's going to be likely a possible trio of young quarterbacks playing for the Terriers, because Bryce Cornston, their senior, is out. He will not play. Paulie Seeley, a freshman, is expected to start, and we're told we also could see another freshman as his backup, Amari Odom, and then even possibly a third quarterback in sophomore Cade Rice. So getting after the quarterback is something that Furman has done very well over the last month and a half, as we've detailed with the stats. But it starts with making a team one-dimensional.
It's too bad it's not played on paper, Dan.
Yes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And with Corson going down, the Citadel, Seeley comes in. And, it was one of those games where it was a rainy day and did what you needed to do. They got Ryan Ingram back. Ingram, the last two games, a running back, had, I think, 136 yards against Western Carolina, 100-plus last week. So, and they've got, I think, a couple of offensive linemen back. So they've been able to maneuver and run the ball a little bit better than they have maybe a little bit earlier on in the year. And you look at those stats, 127 rush, 127 pass. It's almost exactly the same, and it's only 254, and you're averaging 13 and a half. Give up a 23-24 per ball game.
And they've only thrown for more than 200 yards at a game once this year.
Well, and you think about that game last year when Furman won big here. Wofford goes down, scores first. Furman scores, Wofford scores, and then Furman eventually would blow it out 63-27. And in that game, Wofford threw for 428 yards or something and couldn't run the football. It'll be interesting to see from Furman's standpoint. If you go back and you look how East Tennessee played Furman, and they're going to take it away from Tyler Huff. They're not going to let him do it. And maybe there were some other things with some injury situations. I'm not sure about that part of it. But they've had some games talking about Furman where very good running the football, very dominant. And there been some games when other teams have played them and forced them to throw the football, which they've been successful to do as well. So I think they've seen just about everything, but it does change the dynamics of what you want to do. When Carson Jones came in against Chattanooga and his skill set versus Tyler Huff, it didn't hurt at all last week as they were able to throw it downfield, had 2 34-yard touchdown passes and so forth. So I think you still feel very good about that situation.
Yeah, and of course that's the dynamic that Carson brings. And when I talked to Justin Roper for our Coordinator's Corner segment that you'll hear on the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff on Saturday, we talked about the touchdown pass to Mason Pline and how that was just kind of in a nutshell who Carson Jones is. It's a fake handoff, it's a fake reverse, doing all the nifty little ball fake things you do, and then making that pass in traffic to the front corner of the left end zone where only Mason Pline can catch that ball, and you trust him to go up. And of course he's 6'7", he goes up and makes a one-handed grab. But it was a perfect pass, and it came after doing all of the other things that he had to do to set that up. And that's a dimension that he brings, the ability to throw the ball accurately down the field. That's, of all the great things Tyler Huff does, that's not his strong suit.
Well, if you're Mason Pline, and he was on the Furman Football Weekly on Monday, and 6'7", about 250 or so, and comes from Division II Ferris State, where they won back-to-back national championships. How many balls do you think that were thrown to him at Ferris State? I mean, he was a highly successful program there, and it's always interesting on Monday when the young men come in and we have a conversation opportunity to visit with him as well. But he's fit into the program. And Furman doesn't take many, as you know, given the circumstance with the graduate school and some other things like the transfer portal with others. But he's a guy that has come in and fit in, and sometimes that's kind of difficult to do, but comes from a winning background, be it the Division II with back-to-back national championships. And we talked to him afterwards a little bit about what that experience is like as you go through the playoffs. And Furman, Austin P., beat Elon, and then and then also went to Incarnate Word. Then Incarnate Word goes down, went to Sacramento State, and challenged North Dakota State to the Fargo Dome the game after that. So you feel like you can really play with the higher upper echelon teams in the FCS, particularly I think this year.
Yeah, it will be Carson Jones at quarterback again. I talked to Clay Hendricks about Tyler Huff and said that he's feeling better every day, and just it's just going to be a matter of how well he feels in a couple of weeks if Furman continues to do what it should do and get the bye. Taking a look at the SoCon standings, Furman has clinched everything that needs to be clinched. The only question mark now is, do they get the perfect 8-0 conference record. But, Tom, here's the other thing, and we'll flip it over and look at the schedule in a moment. You see Mercer 6-2, Chattanooga 6-2, Western Carolina at 5-2. As we flip it to the schedule, and Chattanooga's playing at Alabama. I mean, they would need an upset of biblical proportions over the Crimson Tide to get into the playoffs. Western at VMI, and of course, Mercer is off this week. They finished their schedule. So one of the projections I saw this week had both Western and Mercer in the playoffs along with Furman, giving the SoCon 3 teams in. This is a big game for Western. As Chattanooga found out, you can go up to VMI and that field and that atmosphere and everything else. You can find yourself in trouble in a hurry if you're not careful.
Well, they've won more games, and again, Furman was dominant last week against VMI, but particularly up there, and almost had an opportunity. Did have an opportunity to beat Chattanooga. It didn't happen. Western Carolina, at times, can put a lot of points on the board, as we know, and you talk about the Chattanooga game, 52-50. That turned out to be a huge, huge game with the last-second kick to win that game. But then they had a 28-25 game most recently, and then the tough game on the road at Wofford. So we'll see. But the last game with Cole Gonzalez, he was able to throw 5 touchdown passes and won that easily. So down the stretch they go. It's a big game for them. We've seen Western Carolina in the last couple of years maybe struggle a little bit early and then win some games late and come up just a little bit shy. And for Mercer, that was a big win over Samford. I mean, Samford, of course, last year won the championship and got into the FCS playoffs. And for them to have an opportunity to get in, they needed to win. They did 28-21.
Well, it's all conjecture at this juncture. There's this 1 week of the regular season to go, and then at 12:30 on Sunday is when the FCS selection show will take place, and we will find out where Furman will be if the Paladins win. Remember, the only other committee poll that was put out about 3 weeks ago, Furman was the number 2 seed nationally. Will they hold on to that? If that's the case and the Paladins continued to win the playoffs, theoretically the only road game you would have to play would be a national championship game. That is the importance of being the number 2 seed. If you're a 3 or a 4, then you have to go on the road if you win your first 2 games in that semifinal. To if you're the 3 team, you're going to 2. If you're 4, you're going to 1.
Well, I'll give you one example, Dan. In 2011, at the Division II level, Pittsburgh State out of Kansas had a first-round bye, played 3 games at home because they were the number 1 seed. They played in the championship game Wayne State out of Detroit, Michigan. Wayne State had to play in the first round on the road and 3 more on the road before they even got to Florence to play the championship. So that's a rarity. But if you can win and you can be at home, man, it is advantageous.
Yes, it is. So on Saturday in Spartanburg, we have a noon kick. That means that the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff on the Inglels Furman Radio Network will come your way beginning at 10:30 in the morning on 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 in Spartanburg, and everywhere on the Odyssey app and Odyssey.com. Game will be televised on ESPN+. We invite you to watch it if you're not going to be there, but turn the sound down and listen to the radio. And also a reminder, just from a parking standpoint, the Southern Conference Volleyball Championships are going on at the same time on Wofford's campus, so you may want to arrive early and try to secure a good parking spot. We'd love to have a huge Furman contingent there, though.
We have seen it over the course of the year that Furman travels pretty well, and then you could use it in this particular game.
And a chance maybe to turn that stadium into a home game on the road if enough purple travels. You ready to get on the road and go do some basketball?
We'll do a little basketball in Conway, Myrtle Beach area. Come on back, do a little football, go back again. So we kind of have that down, and that's a good situation to have. We'll get into the playoffs and have to make some adjustments as well. But boy, it's an exciting time when you can have that kind of success in multiple sports, and many of them at Furman this year again.
Yeah, hopefully crossover season for us lasts for about another month or a month and a half. That'll do it for us on this week's edition of the Inglels Furman Radio Network preview. Again, a noon kick in Spartanburg for Furman and Wofford in the regular season finale And the Paladins will be looking to nail down all of those things that we talked about. And then the selection show at 12:30 on Sunday. And remember, there is a viewing party here at the Younts Conference Center open to the public for that reveal at 12:30 on Sunday. We'll see you then. For Tom Van Hoy, I'm Dan Scott. God bless you, and so long, everybody.